بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على النبي الكريم وبعد. Moving on in this treatise written by the well-known scholar, a scholar that is known for his works in Islam, Ibn Aqil al-Hanbali rahimahullah. He moves on to the topic, which is a continuation from last week, the topic of ghiba. The topic of ghiba. Whereas preserving the tongue and guarding one's tongue, it's an ultimate etiquette from good characteristics and having high morals in Islam. And it usually starts with that a person is judged of having a good character according to how he preserves his tongue. But lisan, if it becomes upright, usually the rest of the limbs of the body become upright. As it comes in narrations, يعني لا يستقيم قلب عبد حتى يستقيم لسانه, that a servant's heart will not be upright until his tongue becomes upright. وكما قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم. So this topic of preserving the tongue, it requires a muhadara on its own. Here I mentioned al-ghiba. We mentioned last week that al-ghiba, the definition of ghiba. Who can mention for us the definition of ghiba? The definition of ghiba? Do you remember? No. Hold on.
Just to mention something about your brother.
Okay.
It's true which he dislikes.
Naam. Mention something about your brother which is true, which he dislikes. ذكر أخاك بما يكره. But we can also say ذكر العيب في حال الغيب. Mentioning a defect or a shortcoming of what he may dislike, whether it be from the religious matters or personal affairs. If he dislikes it and you mention it behind his back, then it is considered to be backbiting. But what if you mention it in front of him, in presence? Does it mean it's allowed? La. It means that is a form of sukhriya, ridicule, and making mockery of your brother. That you mention him of defects and his shortcomings, of deficiencies that he has in front of him, in a way to belittle him. And this is today's topic, that ghiba, it is done, he goes, فصارت الغيبة ما يذكر من النقص والعيب لا يقصد به إلا الإزراء على المذكور والطاعن فيه. So ghiba became what is mentioning of deficiencies and defects, and is only intended by it to belittle and to degrade the person that is mentioned, and to revile him. That's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and some of the scholars, they explained the verse as ghiba, وَيْلٌ لِكُلِّ هُمَزَةٍ لُمَزَةٍ. وَيْلٌ لِكُلِّ هُمَزَةٍ لُمَزَةٍ. So they say the utmost meaning of this verse, as is reported by Mujahid, al-ghiba. And how is it the ghiba? He's backbiting his brother in order to defame him and to revile him. So if ghiba is done with a good cause, meaning that you mention the deficiency of someone with a good intention, as advice for a person, to bring clarity about a matter, to warn of an evil, then this is an exception. It doesn't fall into what we mentioned, to belittle, to degrade. And the affair of ghiba is so severe, it comes on the noble Sahabi Amr ibn al-As, or Amr ibn Abi al-As, radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, authenticated by Albani rahimahullah, that he said that he passed by him and his companion passed by of على بغل ميت, a dead mule. A dead mule. قد انتفخ. It became swollen and his corpse. So he said, والله لأن يأكل أحدكم هذا حتى يملأ بطنه خير له أن يأكل لحم أخيه. He said, by Allah, if one of you were to eat the flesh of this dead animal, the dead mule, in a state how it is far better for him, and he goes even to eat till it's full. It's far better for him than to eat the flesh of his Muslim brother. Also it comes in Abdullah ibn Mubarak, rahimahullah, he says, لو كنت مغتابا أحدا لغتبت والدي. If I was going to ever backbite someone, I would backbite my parents. Meaning, why am I going to give my good deeds to people further away when I can give my good deeds to my parents? Doesn't mean that he's encouraging backbiting, but he means that if a person was going to give his good deeds away, then he might as well give it to those who he loves. So then he goes on to say, وَيُسْتَحَبُّ ضَبْطُ الْأَلْسِنَةِ وَحِفْظُهَا. It's encouraged that a person guards his tongue or preserves it. وَإِقْلَالُ مِنَ الْكَلَامِ إِلَّا فِي مَا يَعْنِي وَلَا بُدَّ مِنْ. And to reduce his speech except in that which it concerns him or it is a must. Really, from the perfection or the excellence of one's Islam is to leave off what doesn't concern him. It's not upon you to ask questions every day about things that don't concern you. Every time you see a person, you ask and inquire excessively about things that do not concern you. And from preserving the tongue is to leave off what has no benefit to a person or has no relation to his personal life. وَلَا بُدَّ مِنْهُ وَأَفْضَلْ مِنَ السَّمْتِ إِجْرَاءُ الْأَلْسِنَةِ بِمَا فِيهِ النَّفْعِ. And what is better than silence is using one's tongue of that which is of benefit. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us this blessing where people, they refer to it as a powerful device, that you can use it for a khair. This tongue is like a powerful device, you can use it for so much benefits. So it's a way of being grateful to Allah, of having this ni'mah of speech and so forth, by praising Allah tabarak wa ta'ala with your tongue and benefiting yourself. And it says, بِمِثْلَ قَوْلِهِ الْقُرْآنِ, such as reciting the Qur'an. وَتَدْرِيسُ الْعِلْمِ, and teaching knowledge. This is a form of using the tongue of that which is benefit. And also applies to the person in the hadith, أَنْفَعُ النَّاسِ لِلنَّاسِ or أَنْفَعَ النَّاسِ أَنْفَعُهُمْ لِلنَّاسِ. The most beneficial of the people are those who are who bring the most benefit to their communities. وَذِكْرُ اللَّهِ تَعَالَى, and remembrance of Allah. Generally, it's been authenticated on Umar ibn Khattab that he said, ذِكْرُ اللَّهِ شِفَاء وَذِكْرُ النَّاسِ دَاء. That mentioning Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is a remedy, it's a cure. And constantly mentioning the people is a disease for the heart. That if you're always speaking about the people, it is heavy on your tongue, heavy on your heart. But what is light and softens the heart is speaking about Allah tabarak wa ta'ala. So this is a narration. ذِكْرُ اللَّهِ شِفَاء وَذِكْرُ النَّاسِ دَاء. On Umar al-Khattab, that he said this from his statement, authenticated by Al-Bani rahimahullah. Mentioning Allah is a cure. It's a cure for your heart. Remembering Allah, it's a cure for your heart. And mentioning the people on your tongue constantly is a disease. Always inquiring about the people, speaking about them. وَالْأَمْرُ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ وَالنَّهْيُ عَنِ الْمُنْكَرِ. Likewise, using your tongue to command with the good and forbid the evil. وَالْإِصْلَاحُ بَيْنَ النَّاسِ, and to reconcile between the people. This is from the utmost virtuous things that a person can use his tongue for. And if a person cannot use his tongue for that which is of benefit, then الصمت له خير. Then silence is better for him. Silence is better for him. So the next topic, we're going to quickly move on because of the time today. وَلُبْسُ الْحَرِيرِ مُحَرَّمْ عَلَى الرِّجَالِ. So now regarding the topic of clothing, he says wearing silk is unlawful for the men. Haram upon the men. Mubah lil-nisa, permissible and allowable for the women. As it comes in hadith, haram ala dhukur ummati wa mubah li inathiha. But the Prophet ﷺ said it's allowable for the woman. The scholars, they differed. What is the reason or the wisdom why it's haram? Why is it haram for men to wear silk? This question may arise. Some said it's because it's a feminine material that is for women. So if a man wears it, it resembles a woman. And also, some have said that it may instill pride in the men if they wear it. As in the past, they would dress with this clothing. And the best answer is to say, هو أمر تعبدي. It's due to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala testing His servants with this act of worship, where He rewards the men with this affair and permits it for the woman. And also it shows a clear distinguishing factor between men and women in their clothing. That even Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala clarifies that men and women are not alike with regards to these affairs and others, with greater preference. But they say there's an exception where men could wear silk. When can a man wear silk? Huh? Hold on. That's going to come. If he has some sort of sickness that calls for it. He has some sort of sickness, such as, I believe it was Zubayr ibn Awam, where he was complaining of an itch or something that is good for that type of material to remove any sensitivity on his skin from reaction. So some people, due to their skin being really sensitive, they require certain materials such as silk. Also, what about a person who doesn't find any other clothing at that time except a silk garment? It's permissible for him to wear. There's a benefit from it as he needs. I don't know. طيب يسأل وكذلك تفضل وكذلك التحلي.
ولبس الحرير محرم على الرجال مباح على النساء وكذلك التحلي بالذهب حتى الخاتم ولو بقدر عين الجرادة.
طيب adorning oneself with gold, even for the likes of a ring, using it on such as a ring or of its likes, and even if it's something small, ayn al-jarada, meaning that even the eye of a locust, meaning that the tiniest of size. So gold is haram, and even if it's used as a small portion of it as a ring. And this is relating to clothing, and it's not relating to utensils and stuff. Well, that's has another chapter to it. ولا يكره لبس الخز.
ولا يكره لبس الخز الذي يشبه الوضع وكذلك القباطي الذي يكون القطن فيه أكثر من الخز. ولا يجوز جعل الصور في الثياب ولا المفارش والستور وما كان على صورة حيوان لأن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قال لا تدخل الملائكة بيتا فيه الصورة.
But he said it's not disliked to wear لبس الخز. And khaz is basically silk, material of silk. الذي يشوبه الوبر, which is mixed with a fur from an animal such as a goat, or even they say from a camel, as it has on its hump. ويكون الوبر أكثر. While with the combination of the two, the fur is more than the silk. So the ruling applies for the majority. The ruling applies for the majority. So if you have a clothing and the fabric of it, it's made with maybe cotton, more cotton than the silk that's found in it. And the silk is not apparent. It was mixed with the cotton and is a small percentage, as it has no value whatsoever. And they say the portion of it is 4 fingers of the size of 4 fingers. If we were all add up together. Or generally anything that is small and it's not considered in comparison to the other material there. وكذلك القباطي, the brother mentioned. Here I have al-utabi, different terms. Basically, another clothing, another way of wear where it's more cotton than silk.
ولا يجوز جعل الصور في الثياب ولا المفارش والستور، وهو ما كان على صورة حيوان، لأن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قال لا تدخل الملائكة بيتا فيه الصور.
طيب, the next part is it's not permissible to take images or to have images of pictures on one's clothing, nor on the mafarish. The mafarish is anything that is laid flat, whether it be a bed covering, or either a carpet, legs of these material that is used for that, called mafarish, or sutur, curtains, anything of that sort, he said, is not permissible. And usually they mention the topic of pictures and images in the chapter of clothing, chapter of libas. Scholars, if you want to find that, you find that they speak about them often in those chapters. And he said that is an image of what is in the form of an animal. It's in the form of an animal. To specify a form of an animal is not correct. Some of the scholars said even on the correct opinion of a person were to have an image of a being or a made-up being or made-up figure that does not exist in real life, but is made as if it resembles a human in its life or an animal generally. That also takes opinion because it's been given a soul. It's been given a ruling of a being that has a soul. Even some have added along, I believe the fatwa of Abdullah bin Humayd, he says that even insects take the ruling. So he said, لأن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قال لا تدخل الملائكة بيتا فيه صورة. That's due to the hadith, Bukhari Muslim, that the malaika do not enter a home that has a surah in it. And that's left general. So the surah that has a soul and its head is still apparent, then it takes the ruling. And some of them have specified this ruling to what is elevated and seen in the house. Curtains, not that which is walked over. He said if there's a carpet that has pictures of an animal and so forth, it's okay. And they say this is Surah Mumtahana. Surah Mumtahana, it means a picture that tuta bil aqdam. It's people walk over it, they don't give it any value. So they say this is an exceptional, and this is the fatwa al-Uthman, but the correct opinion is that the wording is general, surah. So whether it's people walk on it with their feet, or they raise it up as a statue, or they keep it up in the curtain, all of that is a picture that falls into this hadith. And a person tries his best to avoid having these images to enter his home according to his capability, and what he's trialed with and can avoid, then the sin is upon those who have trialed the people with it. والاختيار التختم تفضل.
والاختيار التختم في اليسار وإن تختم في اليمين فلا بأس بذلك.
The next one is using a ring. He said the preferable choice is to use the ring on the left hand. On the left hand, which finger would you put the ring? Huh? Al-Khinsar. You say Al-Khinsar, there's different ways of saying it. So Al-Khinsar, as it's been authenticated, he said the left. There's a difference of opinion because it comes two narrations on Anas ibn Malik, sometimes saying the Prophet wore on his right, and other times saying on his left. So there's a difference of opinion. A group of the scholars incline to the left to be a more authentic narration, but Albani rahimahullah says what is preferable is the right. Albani's opinion rahimahullah sees that it's more preferable to have the ring on your right hand. وَإِن تَخَتَّمَ فِي الْيَمِينِ فَلَا بَأْسَ. And even if he were to do on the other hand, there's nothing wrong with that. With the consensus of the scholars, both are permissible. They're just differing on which is better, which is more preferable. So you can do on this or that. It doesn't affect as well if there's a sin, but it's just which one's better. Okay, next one. Upon there's a prohibition to wear the ring on the index finger or the middle finger. One of those two. It comes on narration and the books of Sunan, prohibition of that. Hold on.
ولا يحل لأحد أن يجر ثوبه خيلاء وبطرا.
It's not permissible for anyone to drag his clothing out of pride and arrogance. And here he's saying pride and arrogance. Some of the scholars have confined the ruling to if a person does it out of pride and arrogance. And that's not correct. The modern fatwa of the scholars such as Bin Baz and Albani, they say that dragging the clothing intentionally is a sign of arrogance and pride. That in itself is a sign of pride and arrogance. Also comes in hadith, whatever is below the ankle is in the hellfire. But it's just more severe if a person were to do it with arrogance. So one is haram and the other one is more severe. And it comes in hadith that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not look at the person who drags his clothes out of arrogance and pride. But if a person, is like this case of Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala anhu, due to the thinness of his body, he kept his izar, his lower garment at times will go below his ankle accidentally, then this is an exception. It's an exception. If a person doesn't do it intentionally and he's not heedless about it, this may happen at times, and this is okay. Hold on.
ودخول الحمام جائز للرجال بالميازر الساترة ويكره للنساء من عدة وحاجة. And
entering the hammam, we know the hammam as the washroom, but hammam means makan al-istihmam, a place to use hot water for bathing and the likes of that. He says it's permissible for the men. In older days, they would have to leave their homes to use hot water to bathe themselves at certain places. So it's permissible for the men as long as they have a lower garment to cover themselves. الساترة ويكره للنساء إلا من علة وحاجة. And this is like for the woman, except if there's cause for that or need. It comes in some hadith that it was not permissible for a woman that believes in Allah and last day to remove her clothing and other than her own home. meaning that she goes to public places and takes a bath in these areas where it's from lack of modesty and there's no need for her. This is incorrect. They say the Prophet ﷺ, he would bathe in his home indoors, and the Prophet ﷺ never used the likes of these affairs. Muqayyim said he perhaps didn't even see it. تفضل.
ولا بأس بالخضاب بالحناء وهو يستحب وكذلك الكتم ويكره بالسواد.
He said there's no harm in using henna to change the color of the greenness of your hair. وهو يستحب. I mean, in fact, it is recommended. It's recommended to, when there's grayness in your hair, to change it. Change the color to henna. What's the color of the henna? Is it orange or yellow? Orange. طيب, more class orange. وكذلك الكتم. Katam is more, it's like a plant that gives yellowish color. The yellowish color they use, and some of them will do a mixture between the yellow and the orange, and it comes out like a reddish color. So you see certain brothers where they have a reddish color, it's a mixture of the two. And they say Abu Bakr as-Siddiq used both. طيب مباشرة. ويكره بالسواد. And now this is the correct, that is haram to change it to black. We forgot to speak about the issue of the manufacture type of silk, the fake silk. That is permissible. If it has the name of silk but it's not real silk, you can tell by the price. That is permissible to use.
ولا يجوز أن يخلو الرجل بامرأة ليس له بمحرم.
This is also from the topic of libas. In the time of the past, if a person were to, even the children, if they were to share the same bed of where they sleep and so forth, this falls under the chapter of libas. Libas of clothing and even the bed covering and all of that, they fall under one chapter. So it's not permissible for a man to be alone with someone who's not of his mahram. And it's as well not permissible for two men or two women to remain unclothed in one firash. Meaning in one area where they're both unclothed. So even for regarding children at a young age, that they should be separated. And if it's boys and girls, they should be separated even in the rooms. So not only in the beds, but even the rooms. When they get at that age, as comes the hadith, the Prophet said, فَرِّقُوا بَيْنَهُمْ فِي الْمَضَاجِعِ. That is in the rooms. But if it's just boys, then they should be separated at that age in the beds. And some have given exception if the bed was as if it's two beds. It's two beds, a big bed where you can divide them two with separate blankets and coverings, and as if there's like a divider due to the size of the mattress. In Yemen, they would divide the people with lampposts or anything that will be any type of divider. And also this even applies for, I noticed the Sheikh Salih Fawzan, and he's explaining poetry that speaks about this topic, that even a man with his spouse, a man with his wife, that even when they're having their relations or so forth, they should be in a state where they have some sort of covering or clothing. This should be in the states. And Fawzan said it resembles the hayawanat of animals and The human beings, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has raised them above that status. Fadl.
ولا يجوز تعمد حضور اللهو واللعب ولا شيء من الملاهي المطربة كالطبل والزمر وخص من ذلك الدف للنكاح لقول النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أعلنوا النكاح واضربوا عليه بالدف.
طيب, and he said it's not permissible to intentionally attend places of entertainment and places of entertainment and enjoyment, that which has malahi, would delude you, such as has musical instruments being played, with zamar, and it says, explanation found of these booklets, it says zamar means qina, music. And a tabl is a two-sided drum. وخص من ذلك الدف لنكاح, and what's made an exception from that, specified was said that a one-sided drum for marriage is okay. And also others have given other scenarios besides marriage where people can use duf. A duf is a one-sided drum, but the two-sided drum is impermissible. So أعلنوا النكاح, announce the marriage. And this is the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, that you should announce the marriage. Now people they'll just inform a few people, and they're saying, I'm scared of, paranoid of these likes of these wordings, of the evil eye. This goes against the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. وَضْرِبُوهُ عَلَيْهِ بِالدُّفْ. And the way you announce it is by hitting the drum for it. So this is allowed, where the woman will do so. And the issue of music, Ibn Qayyim rahimahullah, he has some lines of Nuniyah. حب الكتاب وحب ألحان الغنى في قلب عبد ليس يجتمعان. That loving the book of Allah and loving musical tunes in the heart of a servant, they don't come together. ما جعل الله لرجل من قلبين. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not make two hearts in the chest of a man. So the scholars have said, loving the Quran is iman and loving music is nifaq. So they cannot come together. They're two opposites. So the only way a person can increase in loving the Quran is if he by avoiding loving those musical tunes. ولا بأس.
ولا بأس بالرقية بأسماء الله تعالى وكذلك التعويذ به.
As we mentioned at the beginning of the session, that you're going to find at times some of the topics that are mentioned, they're not organized. Maybe it was similar to like a notebook or notepad that they would write in travels and their journeys of advices, and at times it will not be organized topic to topic. So he says there's no harm when a person is doing ruqyah to use the names of Allah and to bring protection to a person by it, by using the names of Allah in form of ruqyah. Hold on, next topic.
وكذلك والتداوي بالحجامة والفصل والكي وشرب الأدوية جائز ولا يجوز التداوي بمحرم ولا نجس وقد روي عن أحمد كراهة الكي وقطع العروق والرواية الأولى أصح.
طيب, next topic is curing oneself. A great way to cure oneself is using hijama. It's a natural old remedy or a natural method of treatment that was used of the past for many diseases. And just generally it's a reason for the body to be in good shape. Al-hijama. For those who studied hijama previously, they said there's points for basically over 50 odd diseases. So a person, if he knows the points and the places, And he does hijama at his timings of the year, and he's constant upon that, then inshallah will be a reason of shifa for us. Al-Fast is a method of, it's like a way of pinching the nerve by puncturing it or cutting it slightly. This is the last method that a person would resort to if he's in severe pain, that he would weaken the nerve in that area so it does not bring any pain to his body. Wal-Kay, so basically al-Fast is another way of hijama, but it's not really commonly used now. Al-Kay, cauterization, a person's using steel of that sort, he puts it in and he imprints it on the place of pain, and as if he's ironing the area where it removes any sorts of any cells that are painful to his body through the burning sensation. So some people that are suffering from severe migraine, and they tried all methods, you would find that they found a mark in a certain part of on the side of their head. They used the K, and it was as if a steel bar he pressed it onto his forehead, and it would give them a relief from that migraine, a severe migraine. وشرب الأدوية, and drinking different types of medicines is permissible, and any type of herbal drink or combination of different drinks together, that is what's intended here. And he says it's not permissible to treat yourself with that which is haram, or that which is filthy. Some of the scholars, they make an exception in a case where a person has no other medicine beside that filthy thing. For example, now a person may not find a medicine for his sickness except with some pills that have some substance of a pig or anything of that. So Uthman rahimahullah said in a scenario where he's in need and he doesn't find anything else has been prescribed by a reliable doctor, it is permissible in that state. But the origin is that a person will not resort to that, and he'll try to find other than that. وَمَنْ يَتَّقِ اللَّهَ يَجْعَلْ لَهُ مَخْرَجًا. And has come the narration of Imam Ahmed disliking al-Kay, cauterization, وَقَطْعُ الْعُرُوقِ, and puncturing of a nerve or cutting a nerve in a certain area of pain. And the first narration is more upright or more valid, that he's only disliking cauterization and not the first one, what we say, puncturing the nerve or that. طيب تفضل.
ومن رأى من الحيات شيئا في منزله فليؤذنه ثلاثا إن بدا له بعد ذلك قتله. وقد قال الإمام أحمد إن كان ذو طفيتين والأبتر قتله ولم يؤذنه وهو طفتين الذي بظهره خط أسود والأبتر الغليظ القصير الذنب.
طيب, whoever sees in his home, in his dwelling place, snakes or any type of snakes, فَلْيُؤْذِنْهُ ثَلَاثًا, let him give it a warning. ثَلَاثًا, and it comes in narration inside Muslim, ثَلَاثَةُ أَيَّام, 3 days warning. إِنْ بَدَى لَهُ بَعْدَ ذَلِكَ قَتَلَ, and if he sees it on the 4th or any day after the 3 days, then he should kill it. وَقَدْ قَالَ أَحْمَدْ, and it comes in a hadith, another wording, that verily in your homes there are others living amongst you. وَعَمَّارُونَ فِيكُمْ, those who dwell or live amongst you. So they mean the jinn. And it comes in hadith that the jinn have a tendency to come in the form of a snake. And Imam Ahmed said, if it's a snake, ذو الطفيتين. طفيتين, here it says, الذي بظهره خط أسود, those has a black line on his back, but that's not correct. طفيتين is the one that has two white lines on his back. والأبتر means it's thick and it has a short tail. A snake that is a short tail snake that is thick in its body. Those two, he kills it without even warning it. If you see the two. It comes in the hadith, the reason, because it's a reason of loss of sight, meaning that they affect the sight. They can cause blindness to the person. And also, they can be a reason why a woman has a miscarriage. So they're very harmful. And some of them said that this ruling of if you see a snake in your house, to warn it 3 times or give it 3 warnings. They said this is specific to the snakes of Medina. Allah knows best. If it's found in a person's home, something unusual, it doesn't have a reason for appearing in his home and it's there, then he would give it a warning before killing, to be on the safe side. Generally, snakes are from that which يُقْتَلْ فِي الْحِلِّ وَالْحَرَمِ, that which is killed when a person's even in a place of sanctuary places such as the Kaaba or those places, that he can even kill a snake. So and he said the description of how do you warn it, they say imdi bisalam or idhab bisalam, go in peace. That's how we translate it, meaning that you're warning it to leave in a nice way, or else you can kill it. That's it. طيب, the next part, ويجوز قتل الأوزار.
ويجوز قتل الأوزار ولا يجوز قتل النمل ولا تقريب أجحرتهن ويكره قتل القرد بالنار ولا يحل قتل الضفادع لأن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم نهى عن قتل الضفدع.
طيب, the thing about snakes, you find that, as we mentioned, that the jinn have a tendency to come in the form of snakes. For that reason, people that deal with magic and so forth, they may use the likes of snakes and so forth to deceive the people. They even mention a story with Hamad al-Ansari, that a person from an Asian country was using snakes to display that his capability of doing certain things that was unusual. And then Hamad al-Ansari recited a verse, I believe in Surah Yunus, and it all went, it went from what exposed that he was just using magic, witchcraft. So many other times these snakes, what people display that they're doing online and so forth, it's seeking the aid of jinn. But he says it's permissible to kill al-awzar. Awzar is a lizard, that usually comes, sticks on the walls of the person. We can only describe it for those who have been, seen it and their original, wherever they came, the country that they came from, that it resembles, how do you describe it? The geckos, the small lizards that most of the times they're yellow. That is permissible to kill. In fact, there's a reward of killing it. If a person sees it in their home, you can kill it. comes a weak hadith that it was the one that increased the fuel to the fire of Ibrahim by blowing into it. The hadith is weak, but that's mentioned. And it comes in a hadith, whoever kills it on the first strike, it's given for him 100 rewards. And whoever kills it on the second strike, then duna dhalik, what's lesser than that? I believe there's some narration, 50. And then if he gets killed on the third strike, then he 25. And there's nothing mentioned after the third strike. So you have to get the inshallah the reward along with this 3 strikes. But generally it's upon a person to kill it because it can be harmful. It's harmful and it can bring poison into one's food and so forth. There's stories of how it's contaminated food and drinks. وَلَا يَجُوزُ قَتْلُ النَّمْلِ, and it's not permissible to kill the ants or the ants except if they're harmful. If they can مؤذية. If it's harmful, then you can kill it, but you only can kill the ones that are specifically harmful to you. وَلَا تَخْرِيبُ أَجْحُرَتِهِنْ, and it's not allowed to destroy whatever sound houses or rocks that they put together. This is not allowed to destroy. Some of the Salaf, they would use water to pour over it, meaning that they would grant them an easy death or that sort. وَيُكْرَهْ قَتْلُ الْقَمْلِ بِالنَّارِ, and it's disliked to kill lice through fire by burning it. But really no one punishes with the fire except رَبُّهَا, except the Lord of the fire. And a benefit from some of the explanation of this booklet, they say that from the trial of lice is that it will come in the color of the person's hair. This is the trial. And also they say al-qamal, the way it breathes, and it's so rapid that it's a trial. For that reason, the qummal did the trial in the era of the tyrant Fir'aun as a punishment. طيب ولا يحل قتل الضفادع, and it's not permissible to kill frogs. So if it's not permissible to kill them, then it's not allowed with great preference to eat them, and it's considered from the filthy things. The Prophet ﷺ prohibits killing it, and it comes in an authentic narration on Abdullah ibn Amr ibn As that he said, نَقِيقُهَا تَسْبِيح, the noise that it makes. The frog, it's a form of glorifying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So they say this is the wisdom of not killing it. The next one, فصل.
ولا يجوز إحصاء البهائم ولا كيدها بالنار للوسم. ولا يجوز إحصاء البهائم ولا كيدها بالنار للوسم، وتجوز المداواة حسب ما أجزنا في إحدى الروايتين.
The next topic is it's not permissible to interfere of the desire that an animal, like removing the natural desire that an animal has for the opposite, for the breeding and that sort, as a form of way that they would do the male animal. They will physically put pressure on a certain area where it loses its desire. They do that in order for they can use it more for different purposes, and also they say it's with a quality generally in the animal of the price. So it's not permissible, and it said it's permissible in a state if there's a reason, such as for medicine or something that is it's due for the benefit of the animal. وَلَا كَيُّهَا بِالنَّارِ لِلْوَسَمِ, as well as not allowed to imprint a mark with on the body of the animal, to leave a mark that it's owned by you, or this animal is the animal of sadaqah, that they would brand them with fire, or in that way it would be marked on the body of the animal that is this and that. And it comes that if a person is going to do it, then he'll use it on the thigh of the animal. It's less painful. And it's permissible as a form of medicine as well. The animal needs it.
ويكره إزالة الأوساخ في المساجد كتقليم الأظفار وقص الشارب ونتف الإبط والعمل والصنائع كالخياطة والخرز والحلج والتجارة وما شاكل ذلك إذا كثر.
طيب, is this like to remove any filth from one's body or clothing in the masajid, and such as to cut one's nails, or to trim one's mustache, or to pluck his hair of his armpits, or heavy labor of work, kal-khiyata, of tailoring, wal-kharz, wal-halj, and the whole work of sewing and that so forth, wal-tijara, and business trade, وَمَا شَاكِلَ ذَلِكِ إِذَا كَثُرَ, and the likes of that, if it becomes overwhelming. وَلَا يُكْرَهْ ذَلِكَ إِذَا قَلَّ مِثْلُ رَقْعِ ثَوْبٍ, and it's not dislike if it's something that doesn't have a high quantity to it. I mean, it's something small. It's not considered, such as a person fixing the patch or putting a patch onto his thobe, or khasfu na'lin, to repair his shoes in the masjid, or tashrikuha إذا انقطع شسعها, or to fix his shoelaces, or to repair it back if it falls off. All this in the masjid is something small, and it's easy to do, and doesn't distract him mainly from what the masjid is for, then there's no harm in that. Why is that? Because it comes in a hadith. The Prophet ﷺ said in Sahih Muslim and Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, إِيَّاكُمْ وَهَيْشَاتِ الْأَسْوَاقِ, avoid the commotion, or the way how the people of the market are, and bring in that type of approach to the masajid. And this wording was specifically used for the time of Iqamah. Once the Iqamah is made, you should be in a state of silence unless you're speaking for the Salat. Nowadays we hear people that are still speaking, joking when the Iqamah has been made. Once you're in the masjid and the Iqamah is made, إِيَّاكُمْ وَهَيْشَاتِ الْأَسْوَاقِ, be aware of the commotion of the markets. Do not resemble them. Remember that you're purifying your intention, you're reminding, فَرِّقْ قَلْبَكَ, empty your heart from any other type of thoughts before you get into a salah. You don't want the last thing that before you say Allahu Akbar is a word of the worldly affairs that you're speaking to your brother about. Empty your thoughts before you say Allahu Akbar. So do not raise your voice at the time of Iqamah, lower your voice and speak only that which is beneficial. This is a very important reminder. Prophet ﷺ said, إِيَّاكُمْ وَهَيْشَاتِ الْأَسْوَاقِ. And Abdullah ibn Mas'ud and Sahih Muslim. Fadal.
وبر الوالدين واجب. سئل الإمام أحمد رضي الله عنه عن بر الوالدين أفرض هو؟ فقال لا أقول فرض ولكنه واجب.
And also being good to the parents. He said it's wajib, it's compulsory. And Imam Ahmad was asked regarding it, can we use the word that is farb? He said, I wouldn't say farb, but I'll say wajib. And these type of terminologies, there's a difference between them. But an accurate wording, a more correct, precise wording is to say wajib. Fadal.
ولا يجوز طاعتهما في معصية الله تعالى كذلك نص عليه بقول النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم لا طاعة لمخلوق في معصية الخالق.
طيب, it's not permissible to obey them in the disobedience of Allah. When you're reminding the people about the importance of being obedient to your parents, you should as well remind them that this obedience is under the ta'atullah. It's under the ultimate obedience of Allah Ta'ala. You can never go over it. You can never go over it. So, if they were to command you to disobey Allah Ta'ala, then you respond gently that I cannot do so. I cannot do so. Due to the hadith, لا طاعة لمخلوق في معصية الله تعالى. That's the wording I have, but maybe it's a different wording. Follow the next one.
ويكره الاتكاء على يسرى يديه من وراء ظهره ويكره الجلوس بين الشمس والظل.
Is this like for a person to lean on both of his hands behind his back, as to sit in that way? This is comes in a hadith. I can't remember the Sahabi, but it comes that قِعْدَةُ مَقْضُوبَ عَلَيْهِمْ. The Prophet ﷺ said, it is a sitting of those who Allah is angry with. It's a sitting of those who are angry. Some have explained it, saying that the people, when they're punished and tortured in the hellfire, as their hands will be chained behind their back, that will be the sitting. So it's not upon a person to resemble them. And generally, some say it means it causes and earns the wrath of Allah, that sitting. So it's disliked to sit in that way on that hadith. That's the opinion of a group of scholars. But when I was in Yemen, some of the mashayikh have informed me that they heard from Imam al-Wadi'i rahimahullah that he used to incline to the weakness of this narration. So we used to find many in Yemen, they would sometimes sit with their one hand behind their back or two hands. Even though that's not the best posture at times, but if the weak is not authentic, then there's no prohibition. As for the next sitting, to sit between the shade and the sun. This sitting, it comes, I believe, in hadith and Abu Dawud, jilsatu shaitan. It's the sitting of the shaitan. It's the sitting of the shaitan, meaning that the shaitan sits in that area between the sun and also the shade. And some say even medically it's proven not to be healthy. They said it not only affects the temperature of the body from one part of the body and receiving heat from the sun and other from the shade, but they said it also can be a reason of being paralyzed. And they said it's been proven that someone who constantly used to sit in that way was paralyzed. Allah knows best, was the wisdom, but generally it's the sitting of the shaitan, and it's not allowed for us to imitate the shaitan in that way. And the dislikeness goes away if there's a need to sit there. Shaykh al-Baz says, Al-Karaha tuzul ind al-Haja. If there's a need to specifically sit in the area where you're going to be sitting between the sun and the shade, then there's no dislikeness. Or else it is disliked to sit there. Last part, inshallah. This is the last part, inshallah. Bear with us.
ويستحب أن يقول عند النهوض من المجلس سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك فهي كفارة المجلس.
And it's recommended to say when arising from a sitting or from a gathering, سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. It is called كفارة المجلس, an expiation. And even in a sitting where a person did not speak of idle talk or evil speech, it's still encouraged for him to say this dua. Even comes in hadith of Aisha, even when a person is sitting in the masjid, in a gathering, revising Quran, it's still encouraged for him to say, Subhanaka Allahumma wa bihamdik, la ilaha illa ant, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Because he said it's a good ending upon it. ويكره الجلوس في ظل المنارة.
ويكره الجلوس في ظل المنارة وكنس البيت بالخرقة والشرب من ظلمة الإناء.
And it's dislike, this part, and it's been disputed where the author brought this, but he said it's dislike for a person to sit in the shade of a minaret. Allah knows best the reason why the author mentioned that, but maybe it's from the same perspective of sitting between, where maybe an area where there's some sunlight and also some shade, so you fall into the dislikeness of the hadith. As for وَكَنْسُ الْبَيْتِ بِالْخِرْقَةِ, to sweep the house with a cloth or some type of covering, they said this is in the past was a form of extravagance. A person, meaning that a person would not burden himself in trying to clean his home with what is not needed. Stick to what is the main purpose. The affair is not competition. It's just to get the point of cleanliness. وَشُرْبُ مِنْ ظُلْمَةِ الْإِنَاءِ, drinking from other than, meaning if there's an opening of a container and it's not the main opening of where a person will drink from, like for what we do now, for example, we may cut a hole in the bottle or that place, or that is generally disliked. A person will drink from where it was originally made for you to drink from. So he says, he ends by saying, فَهَذِي جُمْلَةٌ مِنَ الْآدَابِ. This number of etiquettes. وَاللَّهُ تَعَالَى الْمُوَفَّقُ لِلصَّوَابِ. So what he intended was to gather a number of important etiquettes and various topics as a reminder for all of us. Inshallah, those who adhere to these etiquettes, then he would attain the makarim al-akhlaq that the Prophet ﷺ was sent to complete. Is there any questions? 2 minutes, huh?
Why are women, they can't take off their clothes in their houses? What if they go shopping and they want to try on different clothes? Are they allowed to remove their clothes?
The area of the past, it was like really outdoors, and it was not a form of modesty for that reason. But if it's indoors, in an area where they're safe and secure, and it's quite modest, the customs of the people, then there's no harm in that. 1 more minute, huh? Do I have another question? Any questions? Wearing the ring for other than like how the Prophet ﷺ used to wear it, if it's done to resemble the non-Muslims, for example, and being engaged, you wear a ring, then that is not allowed. مَنْ تَشَبَّهَ بِقَوْمٍ فَهُوَ مِنْهُمْ. But if it's just the customs of the area, it's a form of beauty or zina, then it's allowed. It's allowed, but it's still encouraged for you to not wear it in the index finger or the middle finger. That's the ruling. So inshallah, after we complete this booklet, there won't be no class next week until further notice. Inshallah, we end with this. We ask Allah Ta'ala to reward this masjid for allowing us to have this opportunity to where we can benefit ourselves in these reminders. And we're thankful and grateful to them. Whoever is not thankful to the people hasn't been thankful to Allah. وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين.